rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
You ever have one of those moments in life, and maybe you're being melodramatic, but you have one of those moments, it'll happen to me a couple times a year, and you're like, wow, it's an epiphany. That means that. Maybe you're going through a tough time with your wife, divorced, not divorced, you can't decide it, and one day you wake up and you're like, wow, we don't really connect. Something happens at dinner, something happens walking through the park, conversation, and you're like, I've been struggling with this. It just doesn't work. I'm not going to get into it. I had one of those. I remember years ago in sports, I was watching a Monday Night Football game, and it was New England, Miami. Remember when Randy Moss went to the Patriots and he was just dominant? And on a Monday Night Football game, they didn't even target him. And I came on Tuesday, I'm like, he's done. It's over. They're getting rid of him. You don't have Randy Moss and Brady didn't look at him. Like 2 days later, he got traded. And the audience was like, Colin, you're overreacting. You always make fun of people that overreact. I'm like, you don't prep all week and not look at Randy Moss when Miami at the time had weak corners. He's gone. Like, I'm sitting there yesterday when LeBron hit that jumper, and I'm like, Derrick Rose, no titles. Just that simple. Because if you can't beat Cleveland now, Varejao out for the year. Kevin Love now out for the year. Kyrie banged up. LeBron twisted ankle. David Blatt, a coaching disaster in the last 2 minutes. And you're at home. If you can't beat him now, Derek, it's over. Well, Pau Gasol is old. Yes, you're dealing with an injury too. Pau Gasol's old. Kyrie is in his prime. Love's in his prime. LeBron's in his prime. They'll come back off a sprained ankle or an injury and be back in their prime. Gasol's injuries, Joakim Noah's, they're past their prime. They're beat up. They're old beat-up bigs. When I'm sitting there watching that game, at home, Blatt whiffed 3 times late in that game. The inbounds plays back-to-back, wasted timeouts. Then he called a timeout he didn't have. Refs missed it. Then, out-of-bounds play, he called for LeBron to take it out, and LeBron said, take it out, I'm taking the shot. So you got coaching incompetence, all sorts of injuries. Chicago didn't play well. Cleveland didn't play well. Cleveland's all banged up. They're missing their star, Kevin Love, their third star. You can't beat them now, it's over. Maybe I'm reaching. Maybe I'm but when that shot went in, I'm like, it's over. They're going to be the Sacramento Kings. They're going to have this great team for years and years, and they're never going to beat the big bad wolf. Never going to beat Kobe and Shaq. Never going to beat LeBron. That's what that shot felt like to me. And maybe I'm reaching. Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's not that serious. But Kevin Love's coming back. Kyrie won't be hurt. LeBron won't just twist an ankle. They'll probably be at home. And LeBron's also going through a bizarre bad shooting stretch from the perimeter. The worst of his career. That will end. Because as we've seen LeBron's body over time, he gets bigger, he gets slender, he gets hot, he gets cold. He, like anybody else, he's had ups and downs. He had a hole in his interior game. He improved that. He's put on weight. He's lost weight. Right now, he is awful from the perimeter. A lot of people say he's tired. A lot of people say whatever, he's awful. And it should be noted, this is still the first year of chemistry for this Cleveland team. Remember that Dwayne Wade, Bosh, LeBron? They were clunky in that first year. If you watch Cleveland play, anybody else noticed this when you watch Cleveland play? That LeBron passes, whatever the analytics say, he passes less than he usually does. And my theory on this is because Kyrie Irving doesn't pass back to him, Dellavedova's a shooter first, not a passer, and J.R. Smith's never seen a shot he didn't like. So J.R. kind of subliminally, subconsciously, doesn't want to give the ball up because he never thinks he's going to get it back. And almost all of LeBron's baskets now are based on LeBron elevating and being great and creating his own magic. Nobody ever passes him the ball and he scores. It's basically, he's just got to create his own magic. And LeBron, more and more on this team, doesn't want to pass it because he's not going to get it back. So their chemistry's not great. They're on the road. They're all banged up, and Love's not there, and Blatt's a disaster, and Chicago can't beat them. They're not going to beat them. They're not going to beat them. They play tomorrow night. Maybe that's their 3% chance. But I felt like it watching that jumper go in. That was more than a jumper. That was a referendum. That was a Rose is not winning a title. The other thing that jumped out to me is that certain players are so great and in such key positions, they can erase mistakes. Andrew Luck's doing this in Indianapolis. It doesn't matter what they're. Trent Richardson, that acquisition, boondoggle. Belichick's whiffed 1 million times on wide receiver draft picks. It doesn't matter. Luck, Brady, they overcome it. Cam Newton did this at college at Auburn. Despite a bad head coach and a terrible defense, they won 6 games in the final drive, 54-52, 37-35. Sometimes a guy's in such a key position and is so great, he becomes the great eraser. Listen, David Blatt admitted after the game, give him credit, owned his baggage, he admitted that he could have lost this game by calling a timeout that he didn't have.
Were you trying to call a timeout there?
Yeah, I almost blew it.
Yeah. So they didn't
to be honest
see
with you. Good thing I was, I think we called 2 or 3 timeouts there on that sideline out, and good thing they caught it. My guys.
I mean, Chicago, you couldn't win that one. Coach whiffing, LeBron limping, Kyrie limping, Love out. Heard brought to you by Regis. New way to work. Call 1-800-OFFICES, 1-800-OFFICES. In the Clippers-Rockets game, I can't be the only person. This feels like Kevin McHale has coached his way out of a job. And he's a great guy, had a family tragedy, had him on the show, one of the all-time good guys. But that feels like these will be his last days as an NBA head coach. That's what it feels like. And here's what's interesting. Remember when Charles Barkley came out and bashed on the basketball analytics guys and Daryl Morey? And he said, all you basketball analytic guys, and tell me how Daryl Morey is so smart and how they've gotten better defensively. Okay. Here's what Houston has given up in the NBA playoffs so far. 108, 99, 130, 121, 94, 117, 109, 124, 128. What is that? The Kentucky Colonels of the ABA? They're awful defensively. And I don't care what the analytics say. Analytics can't judge how players don't like Dwight Howard. Analytics can't judge James Harden turning teammates off with his defense. When you watch Houston play, if Dwight Howard and James Harden, and in the NBA these days, you need a great tandem, not just a great player. You need Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Westbrook and Durant, LeBron and Kyrie, Butler and Rose. Of all the tandems in the NBA playoffs, I'd take John Wall and Bradley Beal over Dwight Howard and James Harden. Because I think those Wizard players like John Wall, and they like Bradley Beal. When you're giving up 115 a game in the playoffs, if you take out that 94 game, they're giving up like 120. That's a team that doesn't have the other teammates' backs. Because defense is about effort. Offense is about talent. Defense is about effort. That Houston team doesn't like their stars.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Finals MVP Chauncey Billups. So how many game winners, Mr. Big Shot, did you have in your career? And I'll give you this. Under 5 seconds. Not just buzzer beaters. Under 5, under 3, in that ballpark.
You know what? I really don't know. But, I was a guy that I could make that shot, but I a lot of times made the shot that was when the game was in balance a little bit. So it might not be under 5 seconds. It might be, man, we just went down 3 with 2 minutes left, and, they're on a heck of a run. Boom, you make that shot to get the team back in it.
By the way, Chauncey, not everybody in the NBA wants to take that shot.
No,
now,
absolutely
Did you
not.
ever see guys hide in the – I mean, were there players – you could even call one out and have fun here. Are there guys that don't want to take the big shot?
There are several guys even superstars that don't want to take the big shot because they, a lot of guys like being on a pedestal and don't want to fail. The guys that are known for taking that big shot, making it or missing it, are guys who usually they don't mind missing that shot and having to deal with being on the Herd show the next morning
Getting
and
clobbered.
talking about, you can't worry about that.
It should be noted, Kobe shoots about 25% on big shots, but he'll never stop him. And there's now, is part of it because he's selfish? Yeah, part of it's because Kobe has the utmost confidence. When you look now, a lot of people have said for years, LeBron's not clutch. We know statistically he's pretty clutch.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the greatest late game shooter ever. There are other guys, Michael Jordan, I thought would be better to take that, or Larry Bird. How did you, and you played against LeBron, how did you view him late in games?
Well, obviously, at the time when I was kind of in my prime, he was still young but a great player. He wasn't known as the most clutch guy at the end of games. However, that doesn't change the way you play him. You still don't want him to have that ball in his hands with the game on the line. Whether you think, okay, man, we know we can't send him to the basket. He's going to make those every single time, although he missed one the other day, a layup at the basket. You want to try to make him take one of those step-back, fadeaway shots that he made last night, and live with the result.
So Jimmy Butler in the end did what the best you can do.
He did the best he could do. I mean, you force him to the coffin corner, which is what we call that area right there. I think the better thing, obviously, Monday morning quarterback is easy to play, but he stepped up and he said something to Taj Gibson right before the play happened. And all of a sudden, Taj Gibson stayed home with Dellavedova, which, why would you guard a man out of bounds? He can't hurt you from there. As soon as that ball's thrown, you got to go double that man. Go double him, make him throw it to Dellavedova. Y'all rotate. It's only 1.5 seconds.
You don't have really time to do that. Force LeBron to pass, and then the clock runs out.
The clock is down. It's over.
Now, David Blatt, the coach, had 3 whiffs, the inbounds back-to-back timeouts.
Yeah.
He called a timeout that didn't exist. Then in the huddle, we now know that LeBron said, Coach, I'm getting the ball. It would be very easy for me, and I already did, kind of clobber him. But have you ever, in the huddle or in a game late, from any of your coaches, changed the play?
Several times. And a lot of times what you got to understand is it's not a disrespect or a slight to the coach. It's just that sometimes as a player, you're in a dogfight, you're in a foxhole out there, you might see some things that perhaps maybe the coach just doesn't see. You might have an advantage that, the coach might not see at that time because he's looking at everybody on the floor as opposed to you. You're the best player on the floor. You're the guy that everybody in the arena and everybody that's watching wants to see with the ball. Make sure that guy gets the ball.
So Kevin Love's hurt. Kyrie's banged up. LeBron has a sprained ankle. Blatt's coaching was regrettable, and they can't win. I said it 15 minutes ago. It felt like Chicago, you can't win this game at home. Derrick Rose is never winning a title.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Derrick Rose is never winning a title because I still think he does have a shot. He's still in his prime. He'll be there for a little while, barring injury. And, some of the issues is, they can't score at times and whatnot. But last night may have been the most devastating loss in the history of the franchise because you play – Chicago doesn't play great, but you hold a team to 38% from the field, 20% from the three. They have 15 assists, 16 turnovers. They scored 12 points, Cleveland, in the third quarter. You're in Chicago. Your best player is playing great. You can't get that win. That could be the most devastating loss that they've seen.
Chauncey Billups joining us to Herd on ESPN Radio. I said that the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're not artistic, have become the Seattle Seahawks. They're doing the opposite of the league, and it's working.
Yeah.
And if everybody played like Memphis, they wouldn't maybe be talented enough to win. But they're in an arm wrestling tournament. Are we just ignoring the best team in the league?
I think so. And I'm always biased to the Grizzlies because they remind me a lot of some of my Detroit teams. We played slow. We called plays. We stopped you. Everything that you wanted to do, we stopped your first and second option, and everybody shared the basketball. It's not the prettiest way to play, which is why it's not on SportsCenter all the time. We don't promote it as much. We want to see the Splash Brothers. We want to see DeAndre and them dunking on everybody. We want to see LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, cross somebody up, make them fall, which is great. It's great entertainment. But when you talk about basketball, this team they play a playoff brand of basketball all season long.
I just watched Bad Boys a couple days ago on TV. Now, the rules prohibit.
The rules are different.
But I'll tell you this. They intimidated Portland, and they're intimidating Golden State. You can see players for Golden State. They just, Tony Allen, I want to talk about this. I told Russillo this a couple years ago, and classic Russillo didn't listen to a word I said. When Tony Allen was for the Celtics, I said, that's the most underrated player in the league. And Russillo went on about some analytical garbage, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So anyway, that's why we don't get along. So I think Tony Allen's one of the few NBA players. We always think Michael Jordan intimidated people. I think Tony Allen intimidates people. Now, if you played against Tony Allen.
Played against for years.
Best perimeter defender in the league. Why is he so great?
A couple reasons. One, he wants to stop you, which is a big deal. He wants to stop everything you can do. And that's a big deal. Two, physically, he's very strong. He got great hands. He got great anticipation. And even he's one of the guys that you play against that even when you get around him, he's still there. He has the ability to get back in the play.
Like in the NFL, they call that for corners makeup speed.
Yeah.
You get smoked on a route, you can make it up.
Yeah.
So he does that.
He has that. Absolutely. He has that. And he's just, he's just a grit and grimy type of guy, man. And I love that about him. And he's created a niche, and he is the best
on-ball defender.
I would say him and Kawhi Leonard, yeah.
Okay, give me the LeBron winner against Chicago last night. And people think I'm a LeBron homer, which is a classic marginalizing of this fine radio host. Go ahead, play the game-winning shot again by LeBron.
Matthew Dellavedova will inbound. Taj Gibson off the bench will be in his face. Delly looks into James, step back deep, hits at the horn! LeBron James hits it at the horn, they mob him at half court, and the Cavaliers have tied this series at 2 games apiece.
And you've had a couple of those in the NBA. What is that flight to Cleveland like now?
Oh, man, it's so much fun. I'm telling you, the one thing, as a guy that has made a lot of big shots, there's no better feeling than making a big shot to win the game on the road.
Now, why? I've heard players say that. What's the road thing?
Well, because you got to understand, you got everybody in this building rooting against you. To make that shot and you can hear a needle drop.
Oh, you could yesterday.
In that building. And that's the best feeling. So now you got 20,000 people in here. You got your 5 on the court and the rest of the guys on the bench.
Everybody else hates you.
You got nobody but the guys in your uniform that are celebrating this whole building. There's no better feeling in the world, I'm telling you.
That's great. Chauncey Billups joining us. We should. Russillo never listened to me on Tony Allen. He was too busy doing squats to listen to Logic. I thought it was a great point then. It's a great point now. Heard brought to you by Ford. We go further so you can. Chauncey Billups, good seeing you, bud.
Yes, sir. You too.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
So there's a big discussion right now. It's like turning into a thing where, according to 2 reports this morning, the Seahawks don't want to pay Russell Wilson. So potentially he'd be on the market for your football team. Yeah, I'd go get him. But Hasselbeck, you may want to listen to this unbelievable take I'm going to have right now. You see this all the time with diets. The ones that sell books are always the extreme diets. Because you can't sell a book saying moderate exercise, balanced diet. Nobody buys that book. So instead, it's the Atkins diet. Steak for breakfast. Grains are terrible. It's the South Beach diet. High fiber. It's the paleo diet. Eat like a caveman. Nuts and fruit. It's the juicing diet. Only things in juice form. Honey, I'd like a pork chop in juice form, if you will. What do they call it? What's the seafood diet called? What was the pescatarian diet? Hey, think I'll have a walleye for breakfast, a snapper for dessert. Anybody got a muskie? Ridiculous. None of these diets work because they're extreme. Nobody wants to eat seafood all day. Nobody wants to eat T-bone steaks for breakfast. Nobody wants to have a pork chop in a blender. They're all idiotic. But you can't sell the other diet, which is a non-diet, which is get off your arse, walk more, and have a moderate diet that includes an occasional dessert. That's why there's a zillion books on UFOs exist and none on, no, they really don't. What sells a book? Extremes, easy things to label, scare tactics. This leads me to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson isn't the best thrower, and he doesn't have a huge arm, and he's not the best quarterback, and he's not Aaron Rodgers. He can't carry an average roster, and he's not Andrew Luck. He can't carry what I would say is a below-average roster. And I hear all these people say you can't pay Russell Wilson because, hey, he couldn't win without that defense. Aaron Rodgers been starting 1 year, 7 years. He's got 1 Super Bowl the year he had a great defense. Tom Brady's got 4 Super Bowls. In all of them, top 10 defense. Peyton Manning's 1 Super Bowl win, best defense he ever had. I went and looked at the top 5 defenses last year. Detroit, Buffalo, San Francisco were all in that group. How'd they do? And by the way, offense doesn't work either. Philadelphia had a great offense last year. So did New Orleans and Pittsburgh. Did they win big in the playoffs? The truth is, with Russell Wilson and winning Super Bowls, it's not the Atkins diet. Way extreme over there. Don't eat bread. All in on T-bones. Round the clock. What wins Super Bowls is good defense, which can be situationally at times great, and a better-than-average quarterback. That's what wins. Eli Manning's not a great quarterback. He's better than average, and when they had a real defense and a real O-line to protect him, he won twice. So, you talk about Russell Wilson, he is hard to label because he's not really the greatest at anything. He's really mature, and he's really stable, and he's got really good feet, but he doesn't have the biggest arm, and he's not the biggest guy, and sometimes he struggles to see. But look around this league. The great star quarterbacks aren't winning without a defense. The great defense, Buffalo, doesn't win without a quarterback. What Seattle is right now is the perfect balance, and that's why they're kind of boring. They've got a great defensive head coach and a really stable, mature, lack of chaos quarterback that can win the Super Bowl. You got to pay Russell Wilson. Now, you're not going to pay him Aaron Rodgers money, but according to a report, they want to pay him Andy Dalton money. Hey, not Andy Dalton. He's not Ryan Tannehill. He's sandwiched somewhere in the middle, which is, so he's not terrible, and he's not great, and he's not amazing, and he's not awful. He's harder to label. Even Greg Cosell comes on our show. He can't figure him out. He's like, well, I don't even know. It's almost like those ad-libs or script. When Greg Cosell can't describe you and label you, you're unlabelable. But if you think Russell Wilson, there's a dozen of them in this league, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Mike, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Mike. How are you?
Good.
I have a comment about what you're saying about Russell Wilson. I totally agree. I'm 63 years old, and I've gone through a lot of football teams in my life, a lot of games. A team wins the Super Bowl, not just the quarterback. You need everything, all the pieces together. Eli Manning, good quarterback, kind of, but when he won, he had great teams around him. Other quarterbacks, when they won, they had great teams around them. Going back to Bob Greasy, they had great teams around them. It doesn't fall on the one guy. Give me Russell Wilson and the rest of the Seahawks anytime.
Well, you have to have a quarterback, especially in this day and age, who is above average. You can't win a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's not going to win a Super Bowl. Geno Smith's awful. You can't have, and I've said this, Andy Dalton is a Nissan Maxima. He's not going to win a Super Bowl, but he's good enough to win a bunch of games. I would disagree. You need an above-average quarterback. Russell Wilson's above average. Maturity, A+. Mobility, A+. Health, A+. Judgment, snap decisions in a no-huddle era, A. A-plus post-snap. So he had a lot of things he does well. Not the best thrower in the game. He's not even close to Aaron Rodgers. But just be very careful. He's not easy to label. You can't get your arms around him. He's hard to describe. Greg Cosell can't do it. He's not the best arm. He's not the biggest guy. He's not you can make an argument Tony Romo is a better quarterback. I would say so. But if you think Russell Wilson is replaceable, be very careful. You start going through the standings of the NFL. There are about 15 teams in this league that would die for Russell Wilson. And I'm lowballing it. I could make an argument it's 20. He's not that replaceable. He's not. He gives you a little Johnny Manziel without the immaturity, a little RG3 without the brittle, a little Kaepernick, but a grown-up. He gives you a lot of little from a lot of elite guys in this league. Am I paying $120 on him? No, I'm not paying $120 million for him. But don't tell me he's Dalton. Don't tell me he's Tannehill. Don't tell me he's like 15th best in the league. I don't buy that for a second.
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
And another Boston hater walking in here.
All right, two things. So I got to jump in right away. Two things on that. Okay. One thing is you were talking about selling books, shock value. You without a shirt on the book, that'll sell books. Okay, so clearly you got the memo on that. In terms of Boston hater, you know what? That's the argument when you don't have a good argument. It's, we just hate Boston. You hate Brady. Listen, dude, I'm from there. My father played the majority of his career from there. If there was actually a team that I liked, that I wanted to do well, it would be the New England Patriots. I wanted to be Steve Grogan, minus the neck roll, by the way, as a kid growing up. Like, that was the quarterback I wanted to be. My neighborhood was Steve Nelson and John Smith. Don Blackman lived up the street. The coaches lived in the neighborhood. My parents still live in the same stinking house that my dad built when he was a rookie with the New England Patriots. I grew up there. I'm from Boston. I love Boston. This has nothing to do with liking a team or hating a team. It's just the reality of the situation.
Okay, so on the text, there's Brady, and the news they think is going to come down today or tomorrow on Deflategate. Many believe the sooner the NFL does it, they can get it passed, the better. You know,
John Jastrzemski.
Brady's texting John Jastrzemski. You said you actually know him.
Yeah, listen, back to me being a Boston guy. When I was in high school, I was a ball boy for the New England Patriots. Well, the first year I was a ball boy, John Jastrzemski was a ball boy for the New England Patriots. So we both get jobs working at Bryant College for the training camp, which is where it was at the time. And John Jastrzemski, here's a news flash for people. It's the only job he's ever had. So before he could even drive a car legally in the state of Massachusetts, he starts working for the New England Patriots, then goes to Bryant College. And while he's at Bryant College, he continues to work, games and things like that for the Patriots. Well, then he takes a job with the Patriots. That is the only job he's ever had in his entire life. So this idea that John Jastrzemski, JJ as they refer to him, some guys call him John or whatever, here's the deal with him. You think he's going to do something that's going to jeopardize the only job he's ever had?
So what if Brady told him to do something?
Well, and by the way, here's how people need to understand this as well. You know, every quarterback is going to have somebody that's their guy in the equipment room.
Sure.
Right? So, he puts your sweatbands in your locker and your belt towel. He's got your, jersey on your pads. He takes care of you. Every quarterback has that guy. He's also the guy that you select the footballs with. It's the way it works on all 32 teams. I mean, there's a guy that works closely with the quarterback. Well, Christmas time rolls around, and unlike you and your staff, Brady gives these guys a nice bonus, or in this case, Jastrzemski's. And it was evidence in the text messages that McNally was getting no love whatsoever for his part in deflating the football.
Hey, it's not my responsibility to pay them.
Well, but in all seriousness, to get to that, there's significant tips, right? Like for somebody in Brady's position, the tip should be a minimum $10,000.
Whoa!
Most likely, okay?
God, for a ball boy.
He's making over $20 million a year. For a guy that does that, it's not uncommon for a tip at that point, an end of the year bonus for a guy to be over $10,000. Let me tell you something. That's a significant portion of that guy's income. So listen. So you're going to be for the cause if you're getting that type of love from the starting quarterback. Well, McNally in the report, if you read it, clearly wasn't getting shown any love by Brady, which is why Jastrzemski was there trying to feed him shoes, feed him T-shirts, get him football signed, get him a jersey. That's how it works.
So your takeaway is Brady basically engineered this thing. Because those guys wouldn't do it on their own.
Why would they do it on their own? Tell me the motivation of them doing it on their own.
I think there was communication.
But wait a second. Tell me what the motivation for those guys doing it on their own would be.
There is none.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, but you and I agree on that. Okay, we agree that Brady instigated it or initiated it. I don't disagree. Now, does everybody do it in the NFL? You're talking about? They don't.
No. I mean, listen, I bounced around, and so I was on a bunch of different teams. My brothers played for 4 different teams.
Has he ever done
I've never talked to a guy who wanted the balls altered in any way once they were inspected by the game officials. I mean, you submit a ball that you're comfortable with. I mean, you've got a lot of footballs to choose from. You select balls that you're comfortable with at that point. I mean, you're picking out footballs that you're okay playing with at that point. You're not saying, okay, hey, submit these, but then make sure you get them to this, to feel like this.
Guys don't do that.
No.
So maybe why Brady's great is he does care about that. He is.
Well, listen, I'm not one of these guys that think that this is why he's great. I would be very clear on this because a lot of people automatically want to take it to the argument of, well, how much of advantage is it? Listen, that's going to vary depending on the person that you ask. And in terms of whether or not he's good throwing a ball that's underinflated or overinflated, or if he's throwing in a Roby, I don't think it matters. I mean, the reality is he's very good, plain and simple.
Okay. So the punishment, I'm guessing 4 games, 1 for the crime, 3 for the cover-up.
Listen, I've said all along that my anticipation would be that it's between 1 and 4 games. Let me just say this as well as it relates to that. If he gets suspended, I'm not going to think that it's crazy and wrong. If he doesn't get suspended, I'm not going to think that there's some injustice there either. Look, I think that because of the way people have been punished for what is deemed a competitive advantage, issue or something else, it's just too inconsistent. It's hard to get a beat on it. And so I don't know that there's going to be anything that really makes you feel a certain way, either way about it. So, look, I'm not hoping he gets punished. I'm not hoping he doesn't. I think it's certainly going to end up, ended up that way.
All right, so I'm going to play a little game with you in the next 2.5 minutes. So Seattle wants to pay Russell Wilson this lower, and Russell Wilson and his agent want to get paid higher. So we know he's not Aaron Rodgers, and we know he's not Geno Smith. Okay, we know he's somewhere in between. So I'll name the quarterback. You tell me, should he be paid less or more based on your belief of how good Russell Wilson is?
But now part of my answer here is going to be based on when he's entering into his contract year.
Get past all that.
But that matters. Like you're not going to pay Peyton Manning at 40 years old might be a very different scenario than Russell Wilson entering in on a 5-year deal.
Okay, so let's say it's a 4-year deal.
But I think Aaron signed a 5-year extension. Flacco signed a 6-year deal. It's going to be a long deal for Russell Wilson.
You're kind of killing my buzz on this game.
But because you're trying to create this scenario that's not realistic at all, and it's not going to be what happens. It's going to be a 5 or 6 year deal.
Okay, why don't you just play the game?
I'm
the host, and you're the guest.
I mean, it's a 5 or 6 year deal. Can we do that?
What if it's a 30-year amortized over 30 years? Why don't I punch you in the forehead?
But listen, I know you buy your second homes with cash, but what I'm saying is that's how it's going to work for these teams. All
right, here we go. Joe Flacco.
He should make more money than Joe Flacco's last deal.
Tony Romo.
Listen, real quick on Flacco.
You just give me an answer?
Joe Flacco had $52 million guaranteed, and that was 3 years ago when this is going to be a 2016 deal. He should make Flacco plus money.
Eli Manning.
When was Eli's last deal? Was a while ago, more than Eli.
Oh, my God. Tony Romo.
That was an interesting. It's got to be more. I mean,
more my!
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying he's better than all of those guys. What I'm saying is that when you look at the money, think about it. In 2013, Joe Flacco signs a $120 million deal on a 6-year deal, $52 million guaranteed.
Yeah, your compass only points north. More.
What are you going to pay him? Here's the thing: if you're Russell Wilson, why would you take less money than Joe Flacco? You're going to make the minimum of $25 million on a one-year deal.
Can you negotiate my next deal?
Listen, I couldn't make this strong of an argument for you, but I mean,
really, you just killed this game. This game had so much promise this morning. We thought we were going to do it for like 4 segments, and you just kind of buzzkilled it right there.
How did I buzzkill it? It's a terrible
and
game.
all this. It wasn't the best game I ever had. It wasn't that terrible. That stinks right there.
By the way, you do pay cash for your second homes, right?
Hurry, get out of here. Bye-bye.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
A new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
By the way, after the game, J.R. Smith and LeBron and David Blatt all acknowledged that his play call in the huddle, he had LeBron taking out the ball. Here's J.R. Smith.
Was there any doubt in your mind who was going to get the ball and where it was going to go?
There was doubt at first because the first coach had LeBron taking the ball out. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, oh, no. LeBron, you get it. I'm like, okay, we need to switch it up. And then, once we figured out who was definitely taking the ball out, I was like, okay.
And LeBron confirmed it.
Were you supposed to inbound on the original play?
I was supposed to take the ball out. I told coach, there's no way I'm taking the ball out unless I could shoot it over the backboard and go in. I told him have somebody else take the ball out, give me the ball, and everybody get out the way.
And David Blatt, the coach, reconfirmed it.
Were you trying to call a timeout there?
Yeah, I almost blew it.
So they
to
didn't
be
see
honest with you. Good thing I think we called 2 or 3 timeouts there on that sideline out, and good thing they caught it, my guys.
And then what happened for the 6th time in his 10th attempt, LeBron took a fourth quarter or overtime playoff shot with 5 seconds or less remaining.
Matthew Dellavedova will inbound. Taj Gibson off the bench will be in his face. Delly looks into James, step back deep, 2, hits at the horn! LeBron James hits it at the horn, they mob him at half court, and the Cavaliers have tied this series at 2 games apiece.
We are also waiting for word on Deflategate. My sources say it's coming down today. And I still contend, my staff thinks this is a terrible take. They think this is my worst take ever. Is that I'm not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I get it. And I'm not here to judge. But if that was my job and I'd done it for 30 years and it was my only job and somebody said to me, hey, deflate the balls, I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'd be like, Tom, you know I love you, but I can't do that.
Did you not hear Hasselbeck in here saying that Tom's giving that guy a $10,000 tip? You're telling me that guy's tipping you $10,000, you're not going to do what he says?
I'm not for sale.
You don't do what he says, you're going to get fired. He'll fire you.
Tom Brady is not going to fire you.
Yes, he would.
I wouldn't do it. Remember last week we got into this argument. It's easy to say when you have money. I would argue, I could make a very valid argument that people with less money are more honest. And in some instances, they've made less money because they're honest. And this idea that if you're rich, it's easier to lie, or if you're poor, it's harder to tell the truth. If I said to you the most honest people you've ever met in your life, would you say the richest guy? Never. Is that the most honest guy? The richest guy? To be a billionaire, you got to step on millionaires. And you know how obnoxious millionaires are. Billionaires got to step on millionaires to become billionaires. So this idea the guy didn't make much money, there's no way he could be totally honest. I would argue less money generally points to somebody with more integrity, not less integrity. There's no way I'd do it. Okay, let me ask you this. If I said to you, Stanzik, how old are you? 28 years old.
Turn 29 in March, whatever.
Okay, if I came to you and said, all right, here's $10,000 cash. You've got to do something that is against whatever is against
company policy. Talk to me.
Really?
You kidding me? $10,000? You know what I make?
$10,000? I could. You know what? I want you to go slash my boss's tires right now. I'll give you 7.
What kind of car does he drive?
It says right here, according to a study, rich people are more likely to cheat and behave badly, research finds. So I would argue a ball boy is more likely to tell Tom Brady, shove it, than less likely. I think a rich lawyer would do anything to make another $10,000. I'm just telling you, if I'm that ball boy, there's no way. And my staff thinks I'm totally out to lunch. Chuck, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Chuck, go ahead.
Hi, Colin. I just wanted to suggest a penalty that I think would be fair under the circumstances. I think Goodell should put the Patriots on probation with the threat of an even stronger penalty in the future should the Patriots do something nefarious. The evidence against Brady and the organization is circumstantial at best, and I think a threat is better than a promise in this situation.
Well, yeah, but what's your probation? You said you put them on probation. What does that mean? Are they losing schollies or something, or what?
Well, you put them on probation for a year, for example, or 2 years, and if they violate an NFL rule, then the NFL comes down hard on them, and I think the threat is going to be more persuasive in the long run than a 1 or 2 game suspension.
I don't disagree, Chuck, but when you're on probation, and when the NCAA put USC or Ohio State on probation, probation also includes a current penalty. What would your penalty be while they're on probation? Like what?
You could make it a monetary penalty or a loss of a.
That doesn't hurt them, Chuck. They're all making billions. It's got to be something that stings. It's got to be taking something away. You know what? You know what it really has to be. Taking stuff away is garbage because, like, even with USC, they still consider themselves national champs. They don't give a rip about the banners. In the end, I don't think your premise is wrong, Chuck. I don't think your premise is wrong. But I think you could put a team on probation, one more and you're in trouble, but you got to penalize them some. I mean, don't forget this. 31 other teams in the league are watching this. You got 31 teams in this league right now that are watching Roger Goodell, and they already think that Bob Kraft is in favored nation status. They're not going to be happy if you give them nothing. That's not going to play well with Roger Goodell. You're going to have a lot of NFL GMs talking to reporters, ripping the league off the record. If they go soft on New England, you watch NFL personnel rip the league off the record. Guys like Schefter and Jay Glazer, they won't be able to answer all the calls they'll get. Jeff, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Go ahead, Jeff.
Colin, love you, man, but I got to agree with your staff on this one. I think it's impossible for you to put yourself in the mindset of a ball boy who is getting offered that kind of cash from Tom Brady. Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, these people are surrounded by yes people. When they walk in a room with the president wants their autograph. It's a tough world to live in, and when that guy asks you to do that and offers you that kind of cash, it's very, very difficult to say no. I agree he should have on character, but I just think that it's very, very difficult for a person like that.
Well, Stanzik 5 minutes ago said he'd take $7,000 to slash tires, which was outrageous to me. I thought you had more of a compass.
I'm already back.
God, is that easy? You did get me a sandwich once. For about a year, you'd go get me a sandwich if I literally bought you one. I thought that was remarkable. You'd go through
It was a good deal.
You'd go through a snowdrift to get me a turkey and cheese. I was like, it's remarkable. Derrick, you're in the herd, a Patriots fan, I'm told. Go ahead.
Hey, yes, sir. How you doing today? Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
My first comment is I don't understand how, to my understanding, it's a $25,000 fee max. So why are we talking about suspensions when they've already listed the max penalty? Like, we can't just pick and choose when to punish. I mean, we're talking about the greatest quarterback to ever play.
Well, yeah, but Derrick, you can't say because he's the greatest quarterback. You can't base a suspension based on a guy's stats. I mean, that's like saying, I like this president, let's not impeach him. It's either an impeachable offense or it's not. Popularity cannot dictate suspensions. Either can Super Bowl trophies. Either he did something right or wrong. What if you had a judicial system? Well, Simon Cowell robbed a bank, but he's very popular on American Idol in the 90s. You can't do it like that. Our judicial system has enough problems as it is, where the richest people get the best defense. It's already, to some degree, diluted. I mean, the reality is our judicial system, wealthy people can hire a better defense team. Did you see O.J.'s defense team? He had like the best defense attorneys, F. Lee Bailey, Johnny Cochran. going against, the county prosecutor. So in the end, there's already a disadvantage to not having money or status in this society judicially. Not supposed to be, but there is. So you can't give Brady a break because he's Tom Brady. O.J. killed people, but he was really funny in Naked Gun. He gets a pass this time. And he goes to breakfast with Al Michaels twice a month. It doesn't work that way. Aaron Hernandez, life sentence. He did have a 1,000-yard season. All right, my bad, 4 years. Can't do it that way.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Eric Spoelstra is a lot better coach than people gave him credit for. Because when I watch LeBron and the Cavs, very rarely do they set up plays for LeBron to score. He has to create his own magic. And Thibodeau in Chicago, who everybody loves, Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, they have to create their own magic. So when I watch these teams, Eric Spoelstra, when I watch Miami, there were plays set up. There were plays set up for LeBron James. There was a certain symmetry to the offense. When I watch Chicago, Derrick Rose is on his own to make a great play. When I watch Cleveland, LeBron's on his own to make a great play. But I don't think if Chicago can't beat Cleveland yesterday, LeBron had a twisted ankle, Love's out, Varejão's coming back next year. LeBron has not had a very good series shooting the basketball. Blatt was a grease fire as a coach. You can't win that game. It is funny. Like, social media has created this thing where people love strong opinions. That's why I mostly stay off Twitter. Certainly don't read the responses anymore. But let's just be honest about it. I mean, all you guys out there, you love Derrick Rose. And I've always been the doubter on Derrick Rose. I was the doubter on Carmelo. You love Carmelo. I was the doubter on James Harden. You love James Harden. How come none of you call and acknowledge it? Because if they were succeeding, I'd have a flood of phone calls today. I called it on Carmelo, called him the most overrated star of my life. He is. James Harden won't do anything in the playoffs. He hasn't. And Derrick Rose will never win a title. He's a more coachable Iverson. That's exactly what he's become. That's exactly what he's become. The one point guard I have always really liked in this league is Chris Paul. I think he's got a high IQ. I think he tries on the defensive end. I think he distributes first, scores second. And I think players, because of that, star players are willing to play with him. Even if he's a little, he can be kind of cocky. He passes to you, and he defends with you. And so, by the way, John Wall, there's another one. Said I'd never build my franchise. He's got two big Eastern Conference first-round playoff wins, 5 years in the league.
Colin, let me ask you something. You say there's only 6 guys in the league you'd like to build around. But 5. All right, but you also say that 6'2" guys don't win. But 2 of the 5 guys you'd build around are 6'2", in Chris Paul and Steph Curry. So how do you reconcile that?
I don't know. I was doing my head. Because I think there's a limited number of guys to build around. And with both Curry and with Chris Paul, I think I get a really high-end IQ, stability, maturity. A lot of building around a guy is talent. A lot of it's talent. A lot of it's maturity. I would build around Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson's nearly as good as Aaron Rodgers. So for me, I would never build around Jameis Winston. I'm not sure I'd build around Marcus Mariota. Let me watch him play for about 2 years. I'm not sure that's going to work in the NFL. But when I build around a franchise, it's not just about how many points you score. Iverson was a remarkable talent. He's not mature enough. If I'm going to, like I said before, I don't have patience. I don't like babysitting. So I just don't, it's not in my DNA to deal with guys who I've got to babysit. Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, sign him, forget it. Never have to worry about it. Show up early, leave late, great teammates, never out drunk, partying, night before the game, not in a Vegas nightclub night before a game. So Chris Paul's a grown-up. Durant's a grown-up. LeBron's a grown-up. Those are grown-ups. I don't have to worry about those guys. I don't think Chris Paul's as talented as Russell Westbrook, but I think he's more mature. I think he's a better teammate. I think he passes the ball, meaning other people will want to play with him. As far as Curry, he's just the best shooter I've seen in the last 15 years. He's the best shooter I've seen in 15 years. Boy, my wife got mad at me yesterday. You know, mad at me. Can I tell a little story here yesterday? Because I was here yesterday on campus, and I usually don't come to ESPN. It's like a 25-minute drive from my house, you know. We had this tipping point, though, yesterday. Like every morning I get up, and when I get up, first thing I do is get a cup of coffee. And I shower and stuff. Maybe have a sip, then shower, come out. And then I kind of go to work. I don't sit around and talk a lot. Kiss, hug, bye, out. And so in the course of doing that over the last few months, I always bring to work a coffee cup. Well, Vince stacks them up in the corner. So I had like 20 coffee cups, right? So yesterday, man, my wife was hot about this, man. I mean, she's hot, but she was hot about this. So yesterday, she's not feeling very good. And in the afternoon, she's looking to get a coffee. She opens the door, and there's no coffee cups left. So she grabs a measuring cup and makes a coffee in a measuring cup. And she just stares at me. She goes, "This is what I'm having coffee out of. I'm having 5/8 of a cup of caffeine because of you. You're a moron." And she just looks at me, and she literally just didn't even, it was like I had to interpret her mood, which was, I'm drinking coffee out of a measuring cup at our house. So I looked at her and her loving eyes, and I looked at my daughter, and I'm like, what are you doing for the next 45 minutes? I think we need to go to ESPN. So I came to ESPN, went to SportsCenter, took a picture of my daughter, and I grabbed a box. 21 coffee cups here at ESPN.
Coffee's for closers only.
Then I came home, said, "Honey, they're all in the sink for you. Why don't you clean them up?" That's why we last, folks. That's why that relationship endures. Honey, here's a scrub brush. Go to work. Celebrate spring birthdays with a smile. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN, starting at $29.99. That was Mother's Day. I thought I'd do something special. I went and got her the cups. I'm not cleaning them, but I went and got her the cups. Tell you what, this relationship is going to be like Gunsmoke or Meet the Press. It's going to last forever.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast. Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals.
That one is gone.
The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.